Hi there, my name is Piers and today I want to talk about the result type that gains a lot of popularity lately. I have a demo project, let's go and bit by bit take a look at it. We have a SOAP API and in my controllers I have a customer's controller. And first of all we have an endpoint for creating a customer and we have a create customer command and we use mediator, so if I go to my commands I have that create customer command that only accepts an email, since our customer only has an ID, an email and a basket with items, but we'll take a look at it later. So I have also a customer repository, it's a simple implementation, doesn't matter, and we inject it in our create customer handler, and then I create a new customer, I add it to my repository and I return the customer back. And I have a create a customer validator and I use Fluent validations for that. So we have a rule that the email property should be an email address, and I have a validation behavior in which for each command I try to see if there is any validators, and if there are I try to validate that command, and if it's not valid I throw a custom application validation exception. Probably you have seen it a lot of times, and I have a custom exception middleware in which, based on the exception that we have in our application, we return the appropriate response to the user, and if it's a validation exception we serialize the validation failures and we return that with a status code of bad request. Now let's go back to our command, and in here I could use a result or one-off as the result type and inject here the iValidator of customer, and maybe in here try to validate the customer and capture the validation result and return that. But I really don't want to do that because I have to do the same thing for every request that needs validation. And you could say that I can still do that in my validation behavior and return a validation result instead of throwing an exception if validation fails. And you can do that, but when you're using a generic result or one-off, you have to use some reflection and maybe add some more constraints, and I don't know if it's worth it. If you do, by all means go ahead and do it, that's actually the point of this video, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Now let's go to our other command. We have add item to basket command, and that command has a GUID as a customer ID and the name of the item. If we go to our models, the item only has a name for explicit reasons. The customer has a basket and the basket holds just a list of items, and we have a method to add an item to the basket. Yeah, it's all public for simplicity reasons, but you get the point. So we have that method and we have that business logic, which is more of validation logic, but again it's a demo, that if we have already an item with the same name, we can add it to the basket, so we are throwing a new exception saying that item already exists in the basket. So back to our add item to basket command, we take from our repository the customer, then the item, then we call the add item to basket method of the customer and we pass the item, and then we just return completed task. Now this handle method right here could throw for a lot of reasons. First of all, it can throw from the add item to basket, and yeah, in your application that would be a more specific exception, and I could have some kind of a middleware mapper to return an appropriate response. But let's also take a look to the database goals, and if the user provides an ID that does not exist, that will throw, but again I can have a middleware and the catch database exceptions, and that will also work with entity framework, and I have already made a video about that, and that's something I generally do, but in the case that we want to retrieve something and then return it, But the same can happen with the item repository. Maybe the item does not exist, so it's just not found does not make a lot of sense because we didn't found what the customer, the item, and maybe you have some more logic in this call for the item. Maybe you also check in the query if that item is not sold out. So in that case, a not found does not make a lot of sense. So in circumstances like this, which there are a lot of things that can go wrong, and each maybe corresponds to a different message, a result make a lot of sense for me. So let's go and implement that. I will create in the root project an app result, and I will keep it simple. We will not use one-off or any pattern matching or make it generic and hold the return object, since we don't have any in this example, but it could be any of the above. So we'll have a property, it will be boolean, and we will call that is success, and then an error message. So public string error message, and that will be nullable, of course, since in success we will not have any error message, and that will create a public static method that will return up result, and I will call that success, and I will just return a new app result with the success property equals to true. And let's have another one for the failure. So let's call that fail. Let's also have the error message, and we will return an app result with the success property equals to false, and the error message equals to the error message. So let's go back to our command. Let's leave the database calls as it is for the sake of time, and we'll check only if we can add this item to the basket. So if customer.baskets.items.any that the name equals to the request name, let's return task.fromResult, and we have an app result.fail and something like the item select already exists in your basket, so you can add it again or something like that. So let's leave it as it is for now. And back to our customers controller. In here, that send method of mediator will have now a result return type, so let's capture that. Var result equals with await mediator.send command. Actually, let's have it return the result, so that will be an I request of app result, and that will return a task of app result. And in here, let's return task dot from result app result dot success. So back to our controller, we will return OK if the result is success, else we will return a bad request and the error message of the result. So what's the point of this video? Should you use a return type in your commands or queries or anything you use? Well, it depends. There is no need to be dogmatic and use it for anything or not use it at all. Think about your application, your use cases, your needs, and if you feel it fits, then use it. If not, then don't use it. In this example, I didn't have a problem to throw a validation exception and use a middleware to catch it and return the appropriate message, but then when we have some more logic and more things could go wrong, it made sense for me to use a result as a return type. So again, use it if you need it and don't use it if you don't need it. Anyway, that's all I had for this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a nice one.